but you're breaking the oath. You can't deal in drugs. In the meantime, they were getting envelopes every fucking week and every month, big envelopes, and maybe 100,000 at Christmas time. Where the did they think these guys were getting the money from? Shaking down candy stores?
Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got Larry.
Well, they called him Chinky, Fatalongo or something like that. His name was, we called him Al. He was about 100 years old. He was 70 years old. He got sentenced to 25 years in jail, and he took it, and he just stayed there, and anyway, he got out in 10, and I met him. He was a good friend of mine, and I told him of the story, what happened to you, and everything else. And his answer was, "You did the right thing." I went to another guy, another friend of mine. His name is Juicy. They call him Juicy. His name is Vincent DeMonico. In fact, his son is my co-host on my show. He spent 47 years in jail. When he come out, I asked him. He said, "You did the right thing." And then I asked another mob guy, pretty high up there, that I'm friendly with, younger generation, half the age, but a tough guy, mob guy. And I asked him, I says, "What would you do?" He says, "You should have given him up. You should have given him up." And still today is, I mean, I gave up everything I ever worked for. I broke my mother's heart again. I disappointed a lot of people. The people that were sending jet planes for me and limousines and taking me all over the world and loved me to death and supported me in every way. I crushed them. Because I wouldn't give these kids up. These kids today are in the same place, which is what Larry Cadish, one of my owners, told me. They'll be in the same place 30 years from now, and they are.
Wait, so how were they able to stay where they fixed the race? They got caught, but you didn't cooperate, so they let them just keep working there?
They couldn't prove that they were guilty. They had nobody cooperate. They couldn't prove it. I was the key. Because
they're still there?
They're still, well, now one of them is dead, died of natural causes, and I think they're all basically retired. Maybe one of them is still racing there. I know Bubba Washington, he died. A couple of them, probably two of them died. Two of them are still around, but I'm sure retired by now. We're talking about 1984. We're talking about 40 years ago. So
yeah.
I don't know. But since then, I went and did my own thing, and I very rarely go up to Monticello. So I don't know. That whole life passed me by. When I saw your podcast, because now I look at all podcasts because I can't watch the news anymore. It's terrible. It's disgusting. I can't watch it. So I watched the podcast, and I watched them all. Half of them I know, some of them I knew of, but I understand every situation and everything. And when Joey Molino came on and said what he started to say, that he's going to have a rat of the month or rat of the week, and he start really pouncing on these guys, because he did his time, maybe 10, 20 years, whatever he did his time and everything. I don't know how he decided to do a website in the position that he was in, but that's none of my business. I don't care. I wish him luck. I also know of two or three guys. I'll take Juicy, for instance, 47 years in jail, devastated his whole family. His wife waited 47 years for him. Me, because I didn't cooperate, broke my mother's heart. She died of a broken heart, as my father did. So, and I can go on and on and on and on. And when the young mob guys tell me, "Well, you should have given the kids the money," and the old mob guys say you did the right thing. In the meantime, the old mob guys are broke. But they have that thing, I stood up. I'm not in the mob. I don't pay attention to them. I got involved with them for maybe 10, 15 years, 20 years because of the trouble I got myself into. I got myself into trouble. I got myself out of trouble. I got myself in a jackpot. I got myself out of a jackpot.
Did the police ever approach you when you had any dealings with these mob guys? Did they ever try to approach you and say, "Hey, you know who you're involved with," or anything like that?
No, but I'm sure that when the times I met Cabert or Al Chinky or I'm sure that they were all under surveillance during them years, the 70s and 80s. I'm sure they were. There were places I went to like the Brown Derby in Brooklyn and all them. I went to a nightclub every night of my life because of my love for music. That's my first love. I should have learned how to play the piano instead of racing horses. I wouldn't have gotten in no trouble. But I love music, and that's what kept me sane and able to go on. That was my first love for music. My next was speed racing competition, and then came the girls. The girls only because they were because of my position at the time and the money and all that bullshit. The girls just gravitate to you, but. Back then you think you're good looking until you run out of money, and then you find out the real story.
You find out you're really not that good looking.
So, but all of these guys, and I have to tell you, how could you blame a guy? How could you blame? And I don't want to get political, but when the president of the United States puts his hand on the Bible and swears to an oath to defend the country, and the police swear to an oath, and the priests swear to an oath, and the sisters swear to an oath, and everybody swears to an oath, including the mob guys. And I've been around long enough in every area, from senators to presidents to mob guys to everyone breaks an oath. They all break the oath. And I was never in the mob. But every mob that I was associated with, and it was with them all, including the ones in Philadelphia and Chicago, it's a joke. It's really a joke. I'm not going to get into how they broke them, but they were mob bosses that took soldiers' wives away. What the fuck are you going to do? There ain't nothing you could do. But you're breaking the oath. You can't deal in drugs. In the meantime, they were getting envelopes every fucking week and every month, big envelopes, and maybe 100,000 at Christmas time. Where the fuck did they think these guys were getting the money from? Shaking down candy stores? It's the whole thing is a joke. Now you get into guys like Dominic, Mikey Scars, Larry Mazza, all of these guys. Some of them, in fact, you know what? Larry Mazza was on my podcast.
He was on mine too.
Okay. So I asked him, I says, Larry, I don't need you to go through your whole story because all the mob guys that are out there know your whole story. But just go through a little bit of what you went through and how you got involved for the horse people that watch my show and don't know. Because what happened to you will never, ever, ever happen again. It can't happen. It's impossible to happen. And that's why they're doing a TV series on you and maybe a movie. And that's why Pileggi says that your book is the best mob book ever written, because the story that you have could never, ever happen again. I won't get into that story. But I says to him halfway through, I says, okay, lad, I got to ask you a question. You're a very, very sharp guy, very, very smart, well-spoken, good-looking guy. Wasn't there one day while you were involved and say, what the fuck am I doing here? Why do I got to take orders from what am I, a fucking mutt? What do I got to take orders from everybody in there? So his answer to me was, it creeps up on you. It just little by little and before you know it, you're involved. Now, I also know a lot of the kids that are sons of mob people. And in the beginning, they're regular kids. And then as they 16, 18, 20, 25, by the time that they're 25, 30 years old, they're playing the part like they were fucking Don Carlo. I mean, it's just they can't help it. It's just a way of life is what happens. Now, I can't blame anybody. Here, I'll take Frank Collada, for instance. Frank Collada, for those of you that don't know, Frank Collada was the Chicago mob sent Tony Spilotro to Vegas to keep track of the skim and everything from all the hotels. And and Spilotro took his right-hand man, who was Frank Collada. So if you saw the picture Casino, that's Joe Pesci played the part of Spilotro. So now, in 1974, Frank Collada did me a big favor. And because of that favor, me and Spilotro and him made millions of dollars. So maybe in 2017, 2018, he calls me up. He says, listen, I'm writing another book. He says, do you mind if I put that chapter in of what we did together in 74? And I says, I don't give a fuck. Do whatever you want. What do I care? I mean, whatever we did, the statute of limitations ran out 40 years ago. So I see him at a wedding 2 years later. And he says to me, he says, you should write your own book, because that one chapter that I put in what we did, I get questioned more about that. And because he had a service in Vegas where he took all visitors to the
mob tours. Yeah, mob tour. Yeah.
Yeah. That was him. He but he he become a government informant. Now,
yeah,
I spent a lot of time with him. And I says to him, I says, Frank, I said, same thing like I asked Larry Mazza, only I couldn't get into it with Larry Mazza because I don't want to embarrass him. I understand what he did. I understand why he did it. And I didn't want to embarrass him, and I just wanted to let it go. But with Frank Collada, I spent a lot of time with him. Yeah. And there was a conversation saying, how'd you feel when you did this? He says, Larry, I couldn't sleep for 10 fucking years. He says, but what the fuck am I going to do? He says, I'm in a cell. The FBI comes with a tape saying, the Chicago crew talking to Spilotro saying, what the fuck are you doing down there? I'm getting 1 million complaints. The fucking money ain't right. You're fucking everybody's wife and this and that. And Spilotro says, it ain't me. It's the other guy. And the order was, take care of your dirty laundry and do it right away. Now, that was Frank Collada. That he just gave up Frank Collada for something that he did. So now Frank Collada, his life expectancy at that point was probably a day.
He was in prison, right? He was going to get released and they were going to kill him.
It was probably a day.
Yeah.
What do you expect this guy to do? I mean, what do you do? The people that you're working with are giving you up. They're fucking lying. Everything that you took an oath to do don't apply. Everybody's breaking every fucking rule. And I'm supposed to get a fucking bullet in the head and stay so on my tombstone it could say, I didn't say a fucking word, but here I lay. What are you supposed to do? I understand that. Now, maybe other situations with other guys. I mean, you're talking about Andrea Lotta, Michael Franchise, John Elite, Dominic Sicali, Mickey, Larry, Gravano, maybe one or two
Anthony
of them.
Arellata, Gene Barillo. There's a lot. The list goes on and on and on. Ruggiero.
Yeah, but sometimes, why is it? Sometimes they have based on the oath, they ain't supposed to do it. But why are they? Look, I've been around long enough to know you're a fucking wild man, like that other kid you're talking about, that Barillo guy.
Yeah.
I heard you kind of chop him up pretty good. And
He attacks my family. He goes at me personally. You know, I'm trying to be a man. Let's go on here and debate, and he wants to cut
well, you
below the
see,
belt.
like I said, I'm probably twice your age, and I'm sure I'm twice his age. When I was around back in them days, back in the heavyweight stuff in the '60s, a guy like him, them guys that are in the guys that raise to the top, they learn. They're the smarter ones. They're the ones that learn how to read people right away. And many times, and I could probably name 20 of them that had the same attitude. They used to call them outlaws. They're just outlaws. They're associates, but they're outlaws. You can't control them. They wind up on Zarriga Avenue or in the trunk of a car, you know.
Yeah.
And today they stopped maybe 15, 20 years ago, maybe when all this RICO shit started in the 80s. They stopped killing, and guys just the guys like that never would have got away. The outlaw kids. But I have to tell you, I heard a lot of the stories, and a lot of these guys. What are you supposed to do when how you got in prison was because of people not doing what they're supposed to do based on the oath you took. So what kind of fucking asshole do you have to be to sit in prison and protect all the guys that just out and out fucked you? I just don't get it. But I understand you took an oath. So I stay neutral on that. I'm not in the mob. I'm not. I know them all. I've been through a lot in the earlier years. And I also know that there's a big difference between a guy like Juicy and a guy like Chinky and guys like Gravano and
Dominic Cicali.
So who's what do you do when you're in the hole? Because I was there.
You sit there.
And you sit there and you stare.
You think.
And if your mind takes you, and the problem I have two major problems. I can't turn the other cheek. I just can't. If I'm right, I can't turn the other cheek. We go to the death. I don't give a fuck.